as a gift to the soul of Sayyidina wa Mawlana wa Habibi Qulubina al-Imam al-Hussain and his companions, recite the second salawat. For Allah to shower onto this gathering with His infinite mercy and compassion, to hasten the reappearance of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. 61 years after the migration of Rasulullah from the holy city of Mecca to the city of Medina, in the year 61 after the Hijrah, in the month of Muharram, and specifically on its 10th day, was the darkest day in human history. And tonight, I want to share with you a glimpse from what occurred on the 10th of Muharram, from the best of historians, and that is your Imam, the 12th Imam, Al-Imam al-Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraj. He writes a ziyarah and he gives it to the Shia. And he says, if you were to visit Imam al-Hussain on the 10th of Muharram, this is how you must greet him. And it's known as Ziyarah al-Nahiya al-Muqaddasa. There, it's a long ziyarah. Inshallah, tonight when you go home, you read it and you contemplate on the ziyarah. In one portion, he says, and you stood, speaking to Imam al-Hussain, and you stood like a lion, holding on to the sword of Dhul Fiqar, defending yourself and defending your tents, defending the women and the children, and repelling the enemies of God. And you reminded them of your father Ali ibn Abi Talib. So they could not attack you man to man. This is what the Imam says. Instead, they surrounded you from all sides, not coming up to him with a sword. They were cowards. They would not dare to come close to Hussein. So they showered you with their arrows. An arrow fell into the heart of Imam al-Hussain, directly in his heart. Imam al-Hussain immediately, he took the blood from the arrow, gushing out from his heart, and he put it on his beard, telling us that if that drop from the heart of Imam al-Hussain, that blood, would drip on the soil of earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would punish all its citizens. Out of mercy and compassion, he stood, fatigued, tired. They surrounded him from every angle, stabbing him, until he descended from his horse. He fell off the horse. So Imam al-Mahdi says the horse went back to the tents, but it went back without his master, Al-Imam al-Hussain. When the woman saw that this horse is full of blood, without Imam al-Hussain, Imam al-Mahdi says they came out of their tents, crying, weeping, wailing. They went and they stood somewhere If you go to Karbala, you see there's somewhere called Tellu Zainabi. This is where Sayyida Zainab would overlook the battlefield. They stood there. What did they see? They saw Shimr approaching Imam al-Hussain, grabbing onto the beard of Imam al-Hussain. But it didn't stop there. Afterwards, Imam says, peace be upon, he says, this is what the Imam says, peace be upon the lips which were bleeding from thirst. Peace be upon every limb which was suffered from Hussein. They cut every limb from his body. Then he says, the tents were burnt. The women were taken as captives. They were paraded from one city to another. And the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was paraded throughout the Muslim world. We need to connect with this tragedy, brothers and sisters. This is why I began my discussion with the masa'ib of Imam al-Hussain. Tonight, I don't have much to offer. Besides the fact that we need to sit and cry for Imam al-Hussain and his tragedy and remember his tragedy and his masa'ib. Until they reach the palace of Yazid. Again, those are the words of the 12th Imam. He said, peace be upon the lips that were beaten by the whip of Yazid. He put the head of Imam al-Hussain and he began to whip the head of Imam al-Hussain. I don't know how I can say this. Honestly, I don't know how I can say this. He would pour wine on the head of Imam al-Hussain. But the hate mongering and the hate did not stop there. They buried Imam al-Hussain. They put him in his grave with his 72 companions. You would think that this would be the end of their hate mongering, but no, this was just the beginning. Those people that took the body of Imam al-Hussain from us were the first group of the enemies. They took his body. But then people would want to visit Imam al-Husain's grave and they were not given permission. They were not allowed to go visit Imam al-Husain's grave. Imam al-Husain's grave in the time of al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi was destroyed. In the time of Bani Umayyah and Bani Abbas, if you visit Imam al-Husain, it equals death. You will be killed. Even if you mention Hussein, you mention his story, you shed tears for him, you will be killed. You cannot mention him. You cannot utter his name. Many occasions, over and over and over again, they tried to destroy the grave of Imam al-Hussain. At a point in time in history, my beloved brothers, sisters, if you were to visit Imam al-Hussain, you would have to give your right arm. And this is not a Shia source. Reliable Sunni historians, they say that people would give their right arm just to visit Imam al-Hussain. And the following year they say, we take the right. He says, last year you took my right arm. This year I'm offering you my left. Take it. But I want to go and visit Hussein. How can such a man survive? How can such a name survive? reliable Sunni historians, popular Sunni historians. This is not just in the Shi'i books. Say on the 10th of Muharram there was a fight over the severed head of Imam al-Hussain. Who's going to take it? There was a fight on who's going to burn down the tents. Who's going to take the orphans as prisoners of war? How can such we are here out of love. We are here. We've left our homes. We've left our businesses. We've left our comfort to come and repay our oath of allegiance to you, Ya Aba Abdullah. Why? Because we, the lovers of Hussain, we who attribute ourselves to Hussain, we who are known to be Hussaini, Hussain is our soul. You cannot take our soul from us. We would be dead without Hussain. We'd be nothing without Hussain. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, if you want to know if you're a mu'min, check your heart. If there is a burning flame within your heart that calls out, Ya Hussain, know that you are a mu'min. Who's put that burning flame within you? Who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a burning flame of love, of passion for Imam al-Hussain and the hearts of the mu'mineen. And nobody can take that away from you. Nobody. On the 10th of Muharram, Imam Zainul Abidin says, you know, the Imam was ill in his tent. He wasn't able to see what was happening. But when they dragged him out of his tent, he says, I looked and I could not believe what I was seeing. My family, my brothers, my cousins, my father, my uncle, slain, beheaded in such a way. The best of the companions of Rasulullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, killed in such a way. I saw the children running from one tent to another trying to survive the fire. فَكَادَتْ نَفْسِي أَن تَخْرُجْ. I was about to die. In that moment, Imam Zainul Abidin says, Sayyida Zainab, she saw me. She said, oh my beloved nephew, oh the only man who's left from the progeny of Ali, or the inheritor of the Imamah, be patient. This is easier said than done. A woman who's lost her children, her brothers, she's taken as captives. She's seen every possible misery within less than a few hours. She's not breaking down, she's not crying, she's not wailing, but she is comforting her nephew, Imam Zainul Abidin. She said to him, Ya Zainul Abidin, things look horrible right now. Indeed they are, but let me tell you, there was an oath from Allah, a pledge from Allah, a promise from Allah to Rasulullah. From Rasulullah to Imam Ali, passed on to Imam Hassan, given to Imam al-Hussain. That after all this is over, Allah will create people who will demonstrate their love for Hussain. who will cry for Hussain, who will build a mausoleum for Hussain. And his grave will be like a shining star to the entire world. Nobody would be able to deny Hussain his right to rise, to shine. Then she says, but the a'imma of kufr, the leaders of kufr, injustice, tyranny, hypocrisy, evil, malice, they will gather and they will do whatever they possibly can. They'll create Taliban, they'll create ISIS, they'll create Al-Qaeda, they will create anything possible. They will spend millions and billions of dollars to destroy the grave of Hussain, so that Hussain will no longer be remembered and known, but they face what? They face Allah. Allah has a different plan. What is Allah's plan? To allow Hussain to rise every day. And they cannot withstand Allah and the will of Allah. This is a promise from Sayyida Zainab on the 10th of Muharram 1,400 years ago, despite the odds. So brothers, tonight, on this night when you gather here, commemorating Imam al-Hussain, ask yourself one thing. Decide to lose. Join Hussain. Look how rich he is. Look how powerful he is. He is Allah's plan. And if you want to be successful in life, if you want to live a life of peace, tranquility in this dunya, and if you want to be united with Imam al-Hussain, his companions, Rasulullah, and his forefathers, this is a decision you make right now. And like I said, Imam al-Hussain's companions were selected individuals. They were chosen individuals. You don't just randomly show up. It's a rigorous process. But you are the man for the job. You are here. This is the beginning of the journey. Continue the journey for the rest of your life with Imam al-Hussain. Have a passion for Imam al-Hussain. And tonight, though we cannot be in Karbala, but we can transfer our souls to Karbala. We will go from here to Karbala, and we will give him our oath of allegiance on a night like this when Imam al-Hussain was sharpening his sword. He was reading his own eulogy. Sayyida Zainab comes and says to him, "Oh my brother, how can I hear you speak of death in such a manner? How can I hear this?" Imam al-Hussain says, "Oh my sister Zainab, tomorrow after I go, I want you to take care of the orphans. And I want you to observe patience. And I want you to continue this journey." There, a few of the companions of Imam al-Hussain stood up and they repaid their oath of allegiance to him. You all know this. And they stood with him. And they gave their life for Imam al-Hussain. So this is why we're here. We are at the house of Hussain, the Majlis of Hussain, to repay our oath of allegiance to him. Take your hearts, your souls to Karbala. Ya Sayyidana wa Maulana, إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. All of us together. يا وجيها عند الله. Tonight we read the Masa'ib of Imam al-Husain's farewell and the Masa'ib of the 6-month-old infant Aliyun al-Akbar. So get your hearts ready to shed tears on the eve of the 10th of Muharram. Imam al-Hussain stood out of the tent after he looked. There were no men left in his camp, all slain. He wore the amama of his grandfather, and he sat on the back of his horse. He came towards the camp of the woman, the tent of Zainab, and he called out, Ahla Bayti al-Wada'. الوداع الوداع قد قرب منكم الافتجاع. Oh my family, come so I can say my goodbyes to you. Those are the last moments. Sayyidah Zainab comes to him, she says to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, before you go, please take a look at this Radi', this tifl, this baby. He is about to die. Go and take him to the enemies. Maybe they would give him a drop of water. Imam al-Hussain looked at him, and this baby could not even move. He took him towards the enemies. He says, oh, the Shia of al-Bani Sufyan, do you know anyone besides me who is the grandson of Rasulullah? They said no. He says, do you know anyone besides me who Rasulullah said, Al-Hasan wal-Hussain Sayyiday Shababi Ahli al-Jannah. Hassan and Hussain are the masters of the youth of paradise. Do you know anyone besides me who is a grandson to a prophet of God on the face of this earth? They said no. He said, then take this baby. In kana dhanbun lil kibar fama dhanbu hadha at-tifl khudhuhu wasquhu sharbatan min al-ma'. What is the punishment? What is the crime of this infant? Take him, give him some water. Even the enemies, they wanted to give him water. Some of them said, take the baby, give him some water. Umar ibn Sa'd came. Allahu Akbar, anta al-mu'azza ya sahib al-zaman. He called Harmala. He said, Harmala, do you see Hussain? He said, yes. He says, do you see the baby? He says, yes. He says, do you see the neck of the baby? He says, yes. He says, I want your arrow to land in the neck of the baby. Allahu Akbar, ayna al-munadi wa Husayna wa Sayyida wa Madluma. فرماه حرملة بسهم ذي 3 شعاب وذبحه على يد أبيه. أين المنادي وحسينا؟ The arrow landed in the neck of the child. Imam al-Hussain took the blood of the child. He threw it to the skies. He says, oh Allah, this is my last sacrifice on this day. Accept this humble sacrifice from me. They say, traditions say, listen to me. Traditions say Imam al-Hussain stopped. He was wondering, how am I going to take this child back to his mother? What am I going to tell his mother? I took Aliyun al-Akbar, he was in warfare. I took Qasim, I took the rest of them. But what about a 6-month-old infant? So he put him under his aba. He was hiding him. He came to the tents. He called out his sister Zainab. She came out. She says, Ya Aba Abdullah, did they quench his thirst? He says to her, take this baby, but don't let his mother see him. The mother came, she saw the baby. She began to cry, she began to weep. Imam al-Hussain says, you know what, give the baby back to me. What did he do? Allahu Akbar. He went, he took his sword, he dug a small grave, a tiny grave, and he buried this infant in the grave. Then he came back, he went into the tent of the woman. He said, Ya Rabab, Ya Sukaina, wa ya Kulthum, wa ya Zainab, wa ya Layla, halummu ilayya al-wida' al-wida'. Imam al-Hussain, you know what he told the woman? He said, go and change your attire to the attire of the prisoners of war. Allahu Akbar. Wa Muhammadah. Wa Hussaina. They all held on to Imam al-Hussain. They held on to his clothes. We're not going to let you go, Ya Aba Abdullah. What will happen to us? Imam al-Hussain came out of the tent saying, Bismillah wa billah wa fi sabilillah wallahu akbar la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. One more time, Imam al-Hussain raised his voice. Ala hal min nasirin yansuruna. Ala hal min mughithin yughithuna.